whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you are blessed and doing safe. Ladies and gentlemen, greetings, family. Of course, I'm tuning in. You see me without the glasses off today, but if you're looking for some opportunities, particular advertisement opportunities, then look no further at the link at the bottom to my email address. You can hit me up for advertisement opportunities. We are supporting and promoting your businesses here on this channel. You can also, if you would like to donate and subscribe to our Patreon, a link is at the bottom as well. So you have multiple ways in which you can advertise with the platform by emailing me when we go on through our live stream. You also have access to premium content, those that want to see premium content that you will not find here on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, as I am suspended probably by now. You guys can check out the Patreon at link at the bottom. But advertisement opportunities, definitely email me, gavin.grich1@gmail.com for rates. And for the Patreon, it is the same as the YouTube channel. It is channel gboot2786. All right, I'll holla. Peace. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another exciting edition, a special edition of Random Topics. But today we have a very special guest, and he is no stranger to this platform. He's been on a couple of times, and it's been a while since I've seen him. And I want to thank him for coming in, Brother Andrew Wyatt. We're going to bring him in a second. But also need everybody, before I bring Andrew in, I need everybody to please hit that notification bell so when we go live, you won't miss our live streams. And also, I need you all to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. You know, YouTube has us on a bit of a shadow ban. Well, I shouldn't say a bit, they do. And a shadow ban essentially prevents us from getting in on that algorithm. But through you all liking, through all you sharing and subscribing, especially when you share it, then other people will see it and subscribe. And basically, that helps fight the shadow ban that we have. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to bring in our special guest, Mr. Andrew Wyatt. Andrew Wyatt is known for being a spokesman for Bill Cosby, but he owns his own PR firm. And he's also worked with a bunch of other people. And we're going to be talking about what's been going on lately, especially in New York with this Adult Survivors Act. And let me get Andrew in right now. Hold on. How you doing, Andrew? Oh, wait, you're on mute. Hold on. You got to unmute yourself.
Gavin, how are you?
I'm doing fine, my brother. And yourself?
Man, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on this wonderful Saturday. I know we've been trying to connect and get together. My travel schedule has been hectic, but I always enjoy coming on your show.
Oh, we always love having you come on. And first off, how is your family?
Everybody's doing well, man. And about how's your mom and dad and your family?
Oh, everybody's doing great. Thank you for asking.
Good.
Yeah. And I gotta ask though too, because I know how's Dr. Cosby and Mrs. Cosby?
Everybody's doing well. They're doing well. Look, you're just fighting these legal battles. There are so many now because of the Adult Survivor Act being amended, and they're called look back windows. So now Mr. Cosby has over 10 or 12 women in Nevada, maybe about 4 or 5 in LA, and now you have, because of the look back window closing on Thanksgiving Day, you had women come out on Thanksgiving Day. So you have a total of maybe 10 or more in New York, and you have one in New Jersey. So when you really think about it, he has over 20 plus women now that have filed civil suits against him through this Adult Survivors Act being amended by the legislatures in these particular states. And it's pretty amazing that, it has happened mainly in the states that majority of his accusers reside. So it says a lot, and it talks a lot about this strategy. And I always tell everybody, this has always been bigger than Bill Cosby. And, I didn't want people to really focus on Mr. Cosby. I wanted people to focus on, how this look back window, and you're a lawyer and you get it, how it's unconstitutional.
Really?
We have a statute of limitations in place to protect victims and also the people being victimized. So, to wait until the statute of limitations expire, it sends a message. If America would just wake up and read between the lines or read the tea leaves, that this is not about justice for victims of sexual abuse. This is about a money grab. This is trying to figure out how uh, women now, they see these mega stars making millions of dollars, and now you have these legislators who are looking for ways to become popular, and with the clickbaiters out there, and enhance their profile, because it was once upon a time where our political figures were there to serve the people, but now there is self-serving, and every political figure now is trying to become a celebrity themselves. So, to put these look back windows in place, it makes you ask the question, you know, who's behind all of this? Who's funding this? This advocacy to go after mainly successful black men and wealthy men in America. You throw a few white men in there to make it believable and say, hey, it's not racist. So I always say that you sprinkle a lot of black pepper out, and then you throw some salt pepper in and say, okay, see, we're
Right.
not being racist. And
The
and
token.
it's
Yeah.
right, right, and it's unfortunate because we have the only formula for this. We was the litmus test,
Right.
tried, true, and tested. No one else. They once they perfected it against Mr. Cosby, they said, you know what? We can't bring and parade white women out anymore. Now we could use black women, and we find the most angriest black women out here, some of the most angriest black women out here, and we utilize them now to destroy black men, successful black men.
Like
I'm not saying bad things don't happen to women. I'm an advocate for women and women rights, but I'm also an advocate for social justice and equality, and being ethics and having morals and values. And what we're seeing now is just a big money grab.
right. I want to show everybody something because I talked about this on my live stream last week, and I want everybody to look at this again. But let's get it. This is according to the AP. I want everybody to see this. So the law has since expired, but the Adult Survivors Act, this is the title, launched over 2,500 sex abuse suits. Now, that's a lot. And you
Hmm.
got to think about this. This, excuse me, this was passed in 2021, 2 years ago.
Hmm.
So it allowed a look back window, as what Andrew was talking about. And really, in truthfulness, part of this was to go after Donald Trump, but
Hmm.
it backfired because now not only has Donald Trump been sued under this, so has Russell Brand, so has Sean Diddy Combs, Jamie Foxx. I also got to mention the mayor of New York, Andrew Eric Adams. He has been sued
Hmm.
under.
Yep. Axel Rose, Steven Tyler, Willie Joe
Wait,
Namath, the famous quarterback for
wait. I didn't know Joe Namath got sued. Joe Namath?
Joe Namath. Yes.
Oh, Joe Namath has been sued. Else, I gotta mention this as well. You know who else has been sued? Uh,
L.A. Reid,
Andrew Cuomo,
Andrew Cuomo, L.A. Reid,
governor.
and
Yeah,
it's that's why when this first happened to Mr. Cosby, if you go back and just Google and find my interviews, um, I said it to cameras and media all over the world. This is bigger than him. If black people don't wake up and America don't wake up, and they allow this to happen to him and they don't speak out, then they're coming after you, Diddy. They're coming after LeBron James. They're coming after Will Smith. They're going to come after President Obama. They're not going to let a black man leave this planet unscathed.
mm,
They have a formula now. Like I said, they could not test the formula. They tried to test it 20 years ago with Robert Kelly. They tried to test it 20 years ago with Michael Jackson, but they didn't have the machine of social media. Now with the machine of social media, you can now throw the rock and hide your hand. You could put an allegation out there and yell fire in a open building filled with people, and it doesn't violate the First Amendment rights. You could just do it now. Social media has created that platform, and it's unfortunate because people have become so sidetracked, in this space of social media. Nobody goes out and read anything. All social media does is turn up the frequency, and they turn it up so high that then it becomes believable. This woman, Joan Tarshis, this last woman that came out against Mr. Cosby, Don Lemon became irate with me because Don Lemon, former CNN host, Don called me up and said, "What? I want to get your perspective on this, Andrew. I want to pick your brain." He said, "Some of these women are saying, Mr. Cosby forced his penis into their mouth." I said, "I got a thing for you, Don Lemon. Do me a favor." I said, "During this interview with Joan Tarshis, say to her that, okay, he forced his penis into your mouth. You got teeth. Why didn't you bite down? Why didn't you defend yourself?" And he got bashed for asking that question. And he called me back and blamed me. He said, "You put that in my head and blame me." No, that's true journalism. That's what most people would ask. Okay, if somebody could force their genitals in your mouth, then you could bite. What did you try to do to make sure this didn't happen? And who did you tell? You had a statute of limit. You had the statute of limitations had not expired. You could have filed charges. You didn't go to a hospital. And now what they have gotten smart, the system and these lawyers, and people don't understand. It's like you see Roundup and Camp Lejeune, these class action suits. You know, they add people in, but the people who get rich off it are the lawyers.
Mhm.
And what they have done with these suits, they figured it out with Mr. Cosby. That's why I say he became the litmus test. They figured out, you know what? No, let's not just sue him. Let's go after the entities associated with him. That's how they got Diddy. They went after the entities because
Right.
what happens is that the insurance companies say, you know what? We're going to settle these claims. That's what happened. See, in the criminal
What happened
trials
with
again,
Michael Jackson?
right? That's what happened with Mr. Cosby.
Right.
The AIG insurance, who he had that policy for decades, valued at almost $400 million. Well, AIG, they supplemented him in the criminal case. They paid all the legal bills because it was a benefit for them to make sure he was found not guilty or get a hung jury in the criminal case because then they didn't have to pay anything out. So they supplemented our lawyers, they supplemented our investigators, they supplemented everything. They took care of everything. Well, when he was convicted in 2018 and he was in prison, they turned around because they don't have to get your permission. And they
Correct.
settled these claims with Janice Dickinson and all these women without our permission. It's
Yeah.
just like car insurance. If you look at the fine print, you could not be liable for that accident. But if the car insurance company, if your insurance provider says, you know what, you're high risk, we don't care if you're not at fault. We don't care if this accident was not your fault. We can settle and still drop you. And that's what they did with Diddy. They came in and said, you know what, which was smart. We're not just going to sue Diddy. We're going to sue all of his entities.
Correct. And what it does is it triggers commercial liability because if you read the
Hmm.
lawsuit, let me pull it up if I
Hmm.
can. I want to pull it up because I showed this to everybody. I've showed it on my live stream, but I want to show it again so everybody has an understanding. If you
Hmm.
look at the lawsuit, and I was on, shout out to Queen Amadaya Shakur. She's a friend of mine, but she has been adamant. Oh, I think Diddy did it. And I was on with six other people or five other
Hmm.
people who basically the first thing out of their mouths was basically they don't like Diddy. And
Right.
I said, fine, you don't like him. Okay. But the fact you don't like him and you hear this, how does that prove sexual assault and rape? You don't know
Correct.
that I wasn't there. Now,
Hmm.
yeah, let's say he is a bad guy. I
Hmm.
still need some more evidence.
Right.
What you have here, Cassie did not go, and they were saying, well, she didn't go to the police because she was probably scared. But you could still go and there's nothing stopping a person, even if she didn't want to file a criminal complaint. Anybody that witnessed it,
Hmm.
like the bodyguards that are coming out, could report it.
Hmm.
Now,
Right.
I want to show everybody this. This was filed in the United States District Court. So this was in federal court.
Hmm.
Tell Southern District of New York, Cassandra Ventura versus defendants. She's the plaintiff and these are the defendants. So I
Hmm.
see Sean Combs, he's being sued as in his person.
Right.
Also, Bad Boy Entertainment, Bad Boy Records, Epic Records, which is very important, Combs Enterprises, LLC, and Dope Corps 1 through 10. So what they did was she sued not only Sean, Diddy
Hmm.
Combs, she sued his companies, as you mentioned, but also Dope corporations were likely also the insurance companies as well.
Right.
Because right, and that happens in lawsuits because as a lawyer, for instance, when we have like if I worked a wrongful debt case, or I had to sue not only the hospital, I have to sue XYZ insurance company because I don't know the name of the insurance corporation, so we just make up a name and you put that
Correct.
in there because that's where you get the most. That's where you get the bulk of your money.
Right.
You
Right.
don't get it from suing one person,
No.
and that's
That
what the
that
lawyer did.
Right. Well, that's why you said that, and that's why I related it to when you see these roundup, these class action suits. You
Correct.
know, if one person doesn't, they don't have the validity to stand on their own and go after roundup. So what these lawyers do and these law firms, they might have went to a smaller law firm who doesn't have the coffers to go after a roundup. So the smaller law firm contracts a major firm, and a judge said, okay, now let this suit go forward because you have the money in your coffers and you have the resources to go after that. And then that's when the larger firm said, look, we got to get more people to supplement what you're saying. And that's what happened with Diddy. If you look at Mr. Cosby's lawsuits, what they have filed in New York against him, they're not just suing Bill Cosby. They're suing Kaufman Astoria Inc., where the Cosby Show was shot. They're suing Warner Carsey, Tom Warner, who owns the Boston Red Sox. Tom Warner owns 25% of the Cosby Show in a different world. Marcy Carsey owns 25% of the Cosby Show of a different world.
Are
If you
they
look at
husband
the,
and wife, Andrew?
huh?
Are they husband and wife?
No, 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 they're not.
Okay.
Warner Carsey, they were the ones who helped create the show, and Bill Cosby gave them the largest distribution deal in the history of America. So when you look at the end of the Cosby Show or the end of Roseanne's show, you see Carsey Warner.
Correct.
They became billionaires because of this. So they're being sued. NBC Universal is being sued. Now that's in New York. In LA, they're suing William Morris because that was the agency he had been with 49 years, 50 years. So what they're doing, they're saying, okay, we're not only going to sue you, Bill Cosby, but we're going to sue all these entities that you were associated with because what these entities are going to do, we don't want to be tied to Bill Cosby. So their insurance carrier is going to say, let's settle these claims. It builds up the coffers of the Merson law firm. This law firm that's suing Mr. Cosby now, they're notorious for handling sexual assault lawsuits. They're running billboards in New York. If Bill Cosby did this to you, come forward. They sued the Jeffrey Epstein estate and got $600+ million.
Right.
So, what they're doing, they scare these other entities in settling. Now the women get money on the front end from NBC Universal when they settle Kaufman Astoria, Warner Carsey, William Morris. And who owns William Morris? R.E. Emanuel, who brother Rahm Emanuel, who's the chief
Yeah.
to staff to Obama. The other brother created Obamacare, and then Rahm Emanuel became the mayor of Chicago. So these people don't want to be tied to Mr. Cosby. So what they're going to do, they're going to eventually settle. And that's going to build up the coffers for them to go after Bill Cosby because now we got that formula. We go after Diddy. We go after L.A. Reid. We go after Trey Songz. We go after all of these people, and we make them settle through their insurance company.
Yeah. I want to show everybody a couple quick things, and I got to jump back and I want to show everyone the lawsuit. This is Carson Warner's website. And
Right.
you see here, these are all of the shows that they produced.
All of the shows.
Third Rock from the Sun, A Different World, Chicken Soup. I never heard of this one, but you see Cosby, Damon, Cry Bill, Sybil. I'm sorry, I said Cry Bill.
Sybil.
Sybil. It looked like an R right there. Sybil.
Right.
God, the Devil, and Bob. Davis Rules, Grace Under Fire. I remember that show. Grounded for Life. I certainly remember that. Men Behave Manly. I remember this, but the big one, The Cosby Show.
Yep.
You also have The Connors, Roseanne, Whoopi, Townies, and You Bet Your Life. That was a reboot of an old show that Groucho Marx host, which, if I'm not mistaken, was Dr. Cosby's idol was Groucho
Idol.
Marx.
Right. And now you have Tom Warner producing that same show right now that's airing on various channels with Jay Leno and Kevin Eubanks.
Okay, the same show.
The same show.
Yeah. All right. I don't want so Kevin Eubanks is back with Jay Leno.
With Jay Leno, and they're doing You Bet Your Life now.
He's still doing his phony laugh.
Yeah, doing the phony laugh and everything.
That's great. Yeah. But so the lawsuit, if I could get back to it, they also mentioned Epic Records. Epic Records, if you all know that name, that was previously CBS Records, but Epic Records is known now as Sony Music Corporation. That's who owns it. As a subsidiary. And Epic, of course, their biggest artist on that label was who? Michael
Jackson, of course.
Right. They also had Luther Vandross.
Prince at one time. Epic had Epic. Well, and who is associated with Epics and RCA? They're all connected. Clive Davis.
And by the way, they talked about him as well. But yeah, Clive Davis owns Arista.
Right.
But you notice in the lawsuit here, at all times, defendant was employer, and this is important, paragraph 22, was employer of plaintiff within meaning of all applicable statutes. So what they said is Cassie was an employee of Diddy. And even though they had a personal relationship for 10 years, and when I was reading this too, one of the things I noticed is that they complained about the fact that they told her, or he told her, how she shouldn't be out partying, she should be resting and all of this stuff, like he was controlling her. He was doing what a lot of record labels do. Look, when they have young artists, new artists, I remember in Motown just reading about this, Berry Gordy was very particular about how his artists behave, how they acted, how they would eat, how they were to appear to the public, not discuss politics or religion. And that was because he was about making money. He didn't want to do anything that would affect the brand.
Well, and that's nothing uncommon. That's why they put managers on the road and security with these people to make sure that they're not getting themselves caught up in situations that make they want them to have a bad time because they want them to look fresh for interviews. Look, they're selling an image. It's entertainment. They're selling sex. It's the brand. And you look at the music videos. I don't think Diddy forced them to dress a certain way because a lot of these artists today, look how they promote themselves and promote sex. And then when things don't seem to go right for them, they come back and say, I was forced 10 years later when they have no more money and they're not as popular. I was forced to do this. I was forced to do that. I don't want people
Makeup has run dry.
Right. I don't want people to get caught up. Right. I don't want people to get caught up into your personal feelings about Diddy. Put that aside. Put your personal feelings about L.A. Reid aside. Trey Songz and any of these artists, even Mr. Cosby. Put your personal feelings aside. Focus on how these look back windows can be amended at any time and these legislatures in your states can do a reenactment of this again, and how detrimental it can be to your sons who are now you have this NCAA rule now where athletes can get paid. Okay, now you got some athletes who are playing college ball getting $1 million. Some might be a little more. They have a target on their back because as soon as they date someone on these campuses and then they break up with them, now a woman can come and say, "Hey, he did this to me." We saw uh, the quarterback for Florida State, who's now with the New Orleans Saints.
James,
Uh, yeah, Jameis, who's from my hometown, Bessemer, Alabama. Jameis, uh, that suit was thrown out in college, but when he got in the NFL, he had to still. She came back again, and he ended up settling with her. Uh, we see it every day, and that's what we need to focus on. Quit focusing on your personal issues with these celebrities and uh, how I don't like them and I heard. No, that's the street committee to talking.
right.
Unless you was there, don't focus on the street committee. Focus on trying to call your legislatures and writing letters and go down to the capitals in your state and say, no, we're against these look back windows. That's what you need to be doing.
Right. I'm thankful I live in the South, which is a Republican state for this reason that they likely will not have these look back windows, although they may try in our state like Louisiana, Texas. I know for a fact probably wouldn't have this.
Well,
I don't
I live in Alabama, and Alabama's not going to have it. And that's why I tell everybody that's
Florida,
the
I
beauty.
don't have.
Florida, that's the beauty about living in Republican southern in these southern states is that the good old boy system, whether you like it or not, these old white guys are not going to go for that. They're not because they see the bigger picture of how this could be detrimental to their sons or their grandchildren. That's what they look at, generational, how to protect the generation. In these what I call socialite states, uh, who want to be too liberal sometimes, uh, they're going with the flow of trying to be liked and trying to be accepted. And that's why you see these windows happening. They
Right,
know it's unconstitutional, but they're saying, okay, well, we'll give you what you want just so I can get what I want at this present time in my life.
right. I'm gonna get to everybody's questions in a minute. I want to show everybody something. This is the law firm I was talking about on my last live stream. I think this is who you're talking about, Andrew Mercer Law.
Mhm.
I want
Right.
y'all to look at when I click on it, what pops up. So I click on it, and then right here is a disclosure asking me to fill out my name, my contact info,
Mhm.
what state I live in. And at the top, they say if you were a victim of sexual abuse by Bill Cosby, you may be eligible for financial compensation. To get
Mhm.
started with your claim, fill out this form or call our offices today. And if
They're
I,
running ads. They're running actual ads in New York. Those are ads.
these are ads. This
Mhm.
is very similar to what that pipsqueak out in Montgomery County did.
Kevin Steele, and what Mr. Cosby, I hated he the window expired, uh, but Bruce Castor, the former district attorney, called me up last year, and he was trying to encourage me to encourage the Cosbys to sue Montgomery County. He said, now the judge has immunity. He said, but
Right.
the district attorney, Kevin Steele, lost his immunity. And there's a case out of Vermont that he cited to me. He lost his immunity when he campaigned that if you elect me, I'll go after Bill Cosby.
Correct.
That's when he
Because
gave
when
up his
you vote
immunity.
for a person,
Right.
if you want
So,
to say, I'm sorry, Andrew, but I got to say this. If
go,
you
no,
want,
go ahead. Go ahead.
if you see attorneys, we have to be very careful with our advertising, especially here in Louisiana. The Supreme Court had adopted a rule that we have to go and actually pay uh, the Bar Association to review our ads because Morris Bart, who is a very popular personal injury lawyer, he got in trouble because his ads, personal injury, he was guaranteeing results. And with the public, you don't ever want to guarantee something because you get your hopes up, they get disappointed, and then they want to sue you. So that's what happened. And now it's different rules in different states. I don't think they may have to do that in Pennsylvania, but the minute Steele, yeah, he ran a campaign saying, I'm going to get Bill Cosby, instead of saying, well, I'm going after, if he had said, I'm going after rapists and sexual abusers or things of that nature, criminals, that's fine. But when you evoke a person, that's problematic, and especially when that person has not been charged or convicted yet, which is
Right.
why he was in the wrong. And I was gonna ask you that too. I was wondering why. I was hoping Doc would have filed some type of lawsuit against him for spending 3 years, almost 3 years of his life in behind
Right.
bars. But yeah, I know he's
But
dealing.
well, you had a year to do that, and I think not even think, just knowing at the time, where these lawsuits was flooding, and exposing yourself to discovery, more discovery. Uh, he felt they were advised that they would be more detrimental to his civil suits that he's facing now, and it will open up the wrong floodgates. I think it was, look, like I say, I created this playbook for Mr. Cosby. It has never been seen before. It had not been seen before. So we know what not to do and what to do. And we have made the mistakes, and we have gotten some things right. And we have, been led by counsel, and some counsel, in these situations, some people just keep the meter running, and they tell you what you want to hear, or tell you what they don't want you to do to keep the meter running, unfortunately.
Yeah,
And I'm not mentioning any names, but that happens to most celebrities, majority of celebrities. When these attorneys get hold of a celebrity, it's the greatest advertisement that they never have to pay for. When their names are in the paper and they get mentioned that they're representing an ex celebrity, from Harvey Weinstein, R. Kelly, Bill Cosby, to Diddy, to Axl Rose, Steven Tyler, L.A. Reid, when they get to say that I'm mentioning these people, it opens up the floodgates for their firms. And so once they get a taste of that life, and a taste of, Tom Mesereau said it best to me. He's a dear friend of mine
yeah, I know Tom.
who represented Michael Jackson. And Tom, I call him a brother. His wife is an attorney, Alice, as well. But Tom said to me, he said, Andrew, um, the the worst thing for the majority of lawyers out here in America is to get their hands on a celebrity client, because they lose their focus and lose their mind. And Tom, every publicist that has worked with any celebrity, Tom has gotten them fired, except me. And Tom even recommended me to represent the Michael Jackson estate. The only thing about it, what happened is that the estate wanted me to move to LA, and that was something that I didn't want to do. But Tom is just he laid it out to me. He said, don't ever. And I knew Tom and a late attorney here, Charles Savaggio. They did pro bono cases in Birmingham for lower economic people for 20 plus years, and just donated it back. So I've been knowing Tom for years, and Tom is just a guy who, he's not driven by celebrity. He's not driven by that. But so many attorneys out here are, and I think what the Diddy's of the world have to do is look at the fact that, do I want this meter running, or do I want to settle this? We have to also look at Diddy's situation, and what people do forget about, who's behind this. Because remember, he is suing Ciroc.
Mhm.
So all of a sudden you're suing Ciroc, and then a sexual allegation come out against you. So you have to look between the lines of all of this when it comes to these celebrities.
Right. I'm gonna get to everybody's questions, but first I want to play this video because Jamie Foxx and Mayor Eric Adams have also been sued under this, and I want to play this
Right.
video right quick uh, concerning Mayor Eric Adams' lawsuit, and I'll be right back. So let me play that.
New York Mayor Adams, who is now facing a lawsuit. claiming that he sexually assaulted a woman back in 1993. The woman says she was a city employee when she was sexually assaulted by Mr. Adams, who was a police captain for the NYPD at the time. Just a short time ago, Mayor Adams responded to those allegations. And Eyewitness News reporter Tom Negevin has been following these breaking details this morning. He joins us now from the Lower East Side. So, Tom, what do we know?
Well, we know the mayor says he had nothing to do with this. It doesn't know this woman, and through a spokesman says this just simply never happened. In fact, he made those denials in person to our Crystal Cranmore earlier today. That in a moment. First, the mayor's next stop on his Thanksgiving Day tour of the city here at the Bowery Mission on the Lower East Side. He'll appear around 1 o'clock this afternoon, help to hand out some Thanksgiving meals. But of course, following him today, some controversy he is absolutely not thankful for at all. It goes back 3 decades to 1993 when he was an NYPD captain, and it is alleged that he sexually assaulted a woman who we are not naming. The suit claiming she too was a city employee at that time. The suit seeking $5 million in damages. Again, a spokesperson for the mayor immediately responding this morning saying he had no knowledge of this woman or these allegations. The mayor offering this denial in person to Eyewitness News just a short time ago.
Absolutely not true. You know, I would never do anything to harm anyone, and just really say, you know, my career speaks for itself, and just really it's just something absolutely that has never happened. And I only recall ever meeting a person who made this allegation.
The lawsuit against the mayor, one of about 2,500 made under the New York State Adult Survivors Act, which expires at midnight tonight. It removes the statute of limitations for lawsuits filed by alleged victims of sexual assault. Among the other prominent names facing lawsuits in the waning hours of the act, Cuba Gooding Jr., Jamie Foxx, Bill Cosby, and rocker Axl Rose. Again, the mayor appearing here at the Bowery Mission around 1 o'clock this afternoon, continuing to deny the allegations in the lawsuit filed late last.
The window is closing for New Yorkers to sue for sexual assaults that took place outside the usual statute of limitations. The Adult Survivors Act is set to expire this week. Fox 5's Linda Schmidt live in our newsroom with more on this. Linda.
Yeah, hi there, Teresa. Well, first of all, tonight, the law has given survivors of sexual abuse the right to file civil lawsuits in the past year for alleged abuse that happened in some cases decades ago. And some of these cases have been filed against Donald Trump, movie mogul Harvey Weinstein, hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs, and tonight, actor Jamie Foxx. E. Jean Carroll used the Adult Survivors Act to win a $5 million civil lawsuit against former President Donald Trump, accusing him of sexual assault and suing him for defamation. Disgraced New York gynecologist Robert Haddon was sentenced to 20 years in prison in July for sexually abusing some patients. Last month, hundreds more filed suit using the New York law. Just last week, hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs settled a lawsuit with R&B singer Cassie after she claimed Combs raped and abused her. And now, actor Jamie Foxx has been accused in a civil lawsuit of sexually assaulting a woman in New York City back in 2015. These high-profile cases and thousands more are the result of Governor Hochul signing the act into law 1 year ago, giving survivors an opportunity for justice.
They want history to reveal what happened to them. They don't want their abusers to get away with it.
Attorney Megan Goddard represents multiple women. The Adult Survivors Act also goes after corporations, businesses, and organizations that cover up for the alleged abusers. But the special legislation expires this week. Goddard wants Albany to extend it.
There's people who are calling me this week who just found out about it for the first time after Sean Combs was sued. They're living in Florida or California or Missouri or wherever. They don't know what's going on in New York. They didn't hear about this law.
A penthouse.
You gotta pause that right there. She said they didn't hear about this law. Hold on a second. Now that's important.
Mm-hmm.
And she said they're calling her from California,
Florida,
and all these other states. And someone asked the question, who, Andrew, who is financing this? Who could be financing all these women to come? Like, where are they coming from?
Well, it's always I tell it I tell it
Cosby.
I tell everybody when someone sets you up, it's not that far away. It's right in your backyard. And I think what happened is that William Morris had a lot of information on Mr. Cosby to be with an agency for 50 years. William Morris was known for Mr. Cosby has never denied that he there was infidelity in the marriage, and they were known for giving women money to take care of them or pay their rent out of the box office for Mr. Cosby. NBC, for example, knowing that Mr. Cosby tried to purchase NBC and the Cleveland Browns at the same time, it's those people behind it. I told the story. It was
Yeah.
a story that Mr. Cosby told me maybe about 3 years ago, how he felt that Jeff Zucker, who was the president of NBC at the time, was responsible for this. And the reason why he said right, and the reason why he said Jeff Zucker is that he was having dinner with Jeff Zucker at his New York home, and he said something racial to Mr. Cosby that he didn't like about black people. And Mr. Cosby said, "Get out my house, you Nazi!" And he called the Jewish guy a Nazi. And Jeff Zucker ended up becoming the president of CNN, and that's who paraded the women out. Look at Kinder Morgan. They were running a $450 million pipeline from North Carolina to the Cosby's property in Massachusetts. And Mrs. Cosby, through her efforts of being an environmental activist, she was able to stop, along with the community, various people in the community. And her daughter, Erin Cosby, read a letter on the Capitol steps with Governor Deval Patrick at the time, who was fighting this pipeline with the Cosby. So it's a lot of people that they fought against for environmental rights, equal rights, civil rights, and those people got millions and billion-dollar entities backing them. So you never know, but it's not that far away. It's never that far away. Like I said with Diddy, Diddy started. They did Diddy the same way they did Mr. Cosby. They did Jamie Foxx the same way they did Mr. Cosby. Diddy got the Video Music Award of the Year, new album out. He's showing off his new yacht. All of those accolades he was getting the same way they did with Mr. Cosby. They gave him all of the accolades, and then once they say we're giving you all of the accolades, now it's time to take you to slaughter. And after he got all those accolades, they took him to slaughter. Why? Because Diddy went after $1 billion entity, and that's Ciroc. And now Ciroc knows where your dirt is. Who sponsored all your parties for all of those decades when you've been with Ciroc? Okay, who sponsored your parties at your house? Ciroc. Your parties on your private plane, Ciroc. So who knows all of the dirty laundry that you have hanging around, you have under your bed or in your drawers that you never wash? You never clean that dirty laundry up. And Soraka said, "Okay, let's pull a rabbit out the hat. You want to come against us? You want to fight us? Oh, we're gonna make sure somebody comes out and fight you. And not only are we gonna make them fight you, we're gonna make them fight Revolt TV, Bad Boy Entertainment, your insurance companies. Well, think about Bad Boy. Look at all the artists that are upset with Diddy because of their publishings, Mace, the Locks, all of these people. So he wouldn't have never gotten a fair shot. And now he's having to step down in the roles that he played with all of his companies, because now we're going to make sure you pay for everything, and you're not going to be able to be the quote unquote media mogul. What people have to understand with these celebrities, saying that you're a billionaire, it's the new thing to say now. But see, these guys don't have $1 billion lying around. They're
No.
asset rich and cash poor. They might have $1 billion in assets, but if they have to defend lawsuits $20 million lawsuits, and let's say you got to defend 25 lawsuits equaling up to $30 million each, you'll go broke. You know, you look at these lawsuits against Mr. Cosby in these various states. They're suing for upwards of 300 to 400 million dollars.
Mhm. Yeah, and as though, and like what you're saying, there's a difference between having liquid cash.
Yeah,
versus
you have none of these
asset.
people, Oprah, none of these people, a lot of these people you see, and I'm not bashing them. I'm just saying they don't have $1 billion
Oh, you can bash
just
Oprah. It's fine.
they don't have $1 billion laying around where they can sell liquid. They have $1 billion in assets.
Correct.
And that's why now, especially black people, and I always say you have to be careful. You know, grandmother always said, don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing.
Yeah.
Okay, and you have to always be careful about how much of your personal business you put out there. You never hear Michael Jordan touting himself as a billionaire. Now, Michael Jordan probably has 3.2 billion in liquid that he could touch, but you never hear him on the scene or on social media touting himself, because one thing he understands is that we live in a white society, and that society has the ability to give you and to take away. They could be an Indian giver at any given time.
Right. Right.
That's what you have to always remember.
Yeah.
And
That's
if I was representing Diddy, and if I was representing, Jamie Foxx, and all, as I tried to do with R. Kelly, and I tried to do with Mr. Cosby, and a lot of people stopped me. Rape is no joke. But there's one thing that they could be doing, and they're not doing, and it's not it's not what the people are doing to them, is what they're not doing. And you can't hide all the time. When you've been so public, now you're hiding. That doesn't help your cause. And I know the attorneys are telling you, hey, don't try this in the media. No, sometimes you have to try it in the media. I'm not saying you go out there and defame people. Be very careful about your wording. But I remember what Tom Mesereau did so brilliantly with Michael Jackson. He produced a video of Michael that was scripted. And Michael said, I didn't do these horrible things. And people got to hear and see the passion in Michael. And that passion got Michael, all not guilty verdicts.
right. I want to say this too. Also with Michael, not only did a lot of his stuff started. I had conversations with his nephew Taj. Taj has been on the program.
Mhm.
Really, a lot of this stuff started in the mid '80s when he purchased that catalog. When he purchased the Sony, it was called the ATV catalog. Many people
Right.
say the Beatles. The Beatles.
Mhm.
I always got to get an accent when I say Beatles, but no, it was the ATV catalog, and there were a lot of black artists that were in that just along with the Beatles, which was one of
Right.
the motivating factors why he bought it. But when he merged with Sony in the mid '90s, and then on top of that, you own your own catalog yourself, My Jack Music, and then
Mhm.
you want to buy Marvel Comics,
Right.
and look at what Marvel Comics is now with Disney.
Right.
It's he had been talking about this stuff. There's an audio recording that aired after he passed, a
Mhm.
voice message where he was talking about doing the same stuff that Disney has, and I think he also
Right.
wanted to buy Universal Studios.
Right.
Pictures. So
Correct. He was owning everything, and it was I had a beautiful conversation with Jesse Jackson wife and his daughter Santita Jackson, and they were telling me how Michael showed up at Reverend's office, just popped in, and everybody was just floored. And he literally had to ask Reverend Jackson, could he give him a credit card and pay for his hotel room? Because he was strapped. He had no cash. And that's why he ended up moving to Bahrain, because Mesereau told them if he did not leave America and get out of here, that they were going to try to prosecute him again. Detectives was trying to set him up. When Michael moved to Bahrain, he had no money. He was cashless.
This was after the suit.
After the trial, he had nothing. That's why he moved to Bahrain. When you look at the strategy of Russell Simmons, that's why Russell Simmons got out of America and became a resident of Bali and sold all of his entities. So, and the people who encourages him to sell all his entities were his lawyers, and who bought his entities up, his penthouses for cheap, his own lawyers. But Russell knew that if he didn't get out, that's why you see Russell. He started to surface when they were building the hip hop museum in New York. He started surfacing and coming back out because he understood, I'm going to give this stuff time for these windows to expire.
Yeah, I'm gonna finish this video and then we're gonna get to some more questions, and then I gotta show Andrew something as well regarding.
Model is now suing Guns N' Roses frontman Axl Rose, accusing him of sexually assaulting her in a New York City hotel room in 1989. State Senator Brad Hoylman-Siegel co-sponsored the Survivors Act and says he is working to convince the state legislature to extend it.
There is a push among advocates, and I have to say I agree with them, to either open a new window or extend it permanently.
And as of right now, there are thousands of lawsuits that have been filed under the Adult Survivors Act in the past year. But once again, that window of opportunity closes this week.
I want everybody to look at this.
To either open a new window or extend it permanently.
This is Senator Brad Hoylman-Siegel, who sponsored this act.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody and everybody, especially every black man in New York, whoever he's running against, and it may be a Republican, but if they're against this law, y'all need to support them and not vote for this man again.
Correct.
Y'all need to kick him out because you're in danger. I hear people talk all the time, well, we got to protect our women. We got to protect, what if you had daughters? And I say, well, what about you, those who have sons? Because
you got to protect your boys. You got to protect your boys because your men, they're going to become men one day, and they're not going to be in a position to protect the women.
Correct. Who did, like Judge Joe Brown talks about all the time, holding manhood and protecting womanhood.
Right,
the reason behind that is that men are the ones who have to protect women. Yes. But we also want to make sure that our boys are also safe from harm, because if you have a boy who is let's say the star athlete at his school, like you had the case with, I can't think of one of the brothers that was a wide receiver who was found not guilty of sexual assault, but this black man was accused of raping a white girl, and they came back and they acquitted him. I think he was a receiver for the Buckeyes.
Right. You're talking about he was a partner with the guy who did the movie, and they ruined him, Nat Turner.
You talking about Nate Parker?
Yeah.
No, I wasn't talking about him.
Okay.
But yeah, Nate Parker was another one who they blackballed in. I mean, he got acquitted.
But the white girl ended up committing suicide. And when that movie came out, he lost his cool in an interview with Robert Roberts from ABC News, opposed to just saying, hey, look, I was acquitted by a jury in Erie, Pennsylvania, a coal mining time that were not my peers. So I was acquitted, and they destroyed him. And those are the things that we have to look. You got to study history in order to see that this is nothing new. But most of us, we don't study history. We move about in our everyday life thinking this can't happen to me. Well, when they create a formula to take down your black iconic figures, what they have done is saying it's no different than you have Governor DeSantis taking our history out of our schools. They're destroying your history. And that's what we have to fight against, them destroying our history.
These are the two football players, from Ohio State. This happened earlier in February.
Ohio State football players charged with rape, not guilty. The attorneys for Amir Rep and Jocelyn Wynn confirmed to 10 TV News just moments ago about this verdict. Cell phone video was shown in court, taken moments after the alleged incident. Both sides argued that the video served as important evidence.
Amir Reep took out his cell phone and had her record a video that you'll see saying that it was consensual. I want you to pay close attention to who says what and how they sound.
It was a team meeting, the Ohio State players, where they said, always make sure you get it on record that whatever you did was consensual.
The alleged incident happened in 2020 when Reep and Wint were arrested. They were dismissed from the Ohio State University football team.
They were dismissed from the team and they were found not guilty.
Not guilty.
But the question is, were they allowed to come back on the team afterwards? Well, if they were kicked off in 2020 and it's 2023, more than likely they never got to come back to playing football. But that happened also to the player Brian Banks, who they made a movie about. But getting back, because I know everybody had questions that they wanted to ask Andrew. And I also want to just, before I get to your questions, I know I keep putting them off, but I want to show Andrew something too. We mentioned this in the book, and shout out to Tariq Nasheed with Melanoic Nation.
Right.
Joan Tarshis, I wanted to get back to her. The title of this article from Melanoic Nation was, "Why is the media ignoring the shady backgrounds of some of the Cosby accusers?" And we talk about some of these women, but I distinctly think I had, and I may have left her, Miss Tarshis on here in the book. But Sean Brown was also mentioned. She's very important because her daughter was Autumn Jackson, and that's another story. But Joan Tarshis, ladies and gentlemen, suffered from delusions, including alcoholism and mental illness. She claimed that Bill Cosby drugged her, that made her perform oral sex on him. After that alleged incident, she claimed she went to Cosby she went with Cosby to a performance he had at the Westbury Music Festival in the fall of 1969, where he allegedly drugs and rapes her again. The problem with this story is that there is documented proof that Cosby did not perform at the Westbury Musical Festival in the fall of 1969. And there are several inconsistencies with the timeline she's provided to the media. But it doesn't stop, and it didn't stop CNN or Inside Edition from giving her story from her, because they're trying to sell advertisement, as you know, Andrew, being in media. So Joan Tarshis has this history that they won't talk about. And so does Barbara Bauman and Therese Serengis and Beth Ferrier.
And if you read Therese Serengis, if you read her deposition, she states in her deposition that I went to one of Bill Cosby's shows. He was performing on stage. When he got off the stage, I asked him to give me 2 Quaaludes, and then we went in his Rolls Royce and had sex. You know, she admits that, and that it was consensual. But the problem is that media knows how to fan the flame. As Malcolm X said, media has the ability to make the guilty innocent and the innocent guilty. You know, and that's the power of the media. And working in the news business, look, I worked in that entity, in that world for ABC and Fox, where they would have us go and get dirt and pull up information on a political figure to boost the ratings, especially during your sweet months, your ratings months, February, May, July, November. July is a rerun month, but February, May, and November are big sweet months, and that's how stations build up their ratings to rake in more money, because the higher the ratings are for those shows and those new shows, they get the cost per point dollars to make millions and billions of dollars off of advertisers. So they would say, look, we need something juicy. Go find us something juicy. That's why when Trump is in the news, they make billions of dollars when Trump is in the news. Every time Mr. Cosby is in the news for something, billions of dollars. Now Diddy, now Jamie Foxx. Notice how they lead in these situations with Black men. That when they lead with Black men, they understand that if we say a Black man is accused of sexual assault, we automatically don't think of a Black woman, we think of a white woman. And that incites a riot into the fan base and the sponsors and all of the production companies who want to do business with these black entertainers, because they've already put the ideal out there. Sexual assault, he's black, it got to be a white woman. It has to be.
Right. I think we may have answered this already, but let me get to that girl. Shout out to her. She asked, why hasn't anyone challenged the new law taking away the statute of limitations changed in appellate court, or has it been challenged? Well, I think I can partly answer this. These things are new. They've recently gotten in. And you saw, since this was, for instance, let's talk about the Adult Survivors Act. It was filed in 2021. So while the lawsuits have been filed, some have either may have not gone to court as of yet. Others have probably been settled, which was probably may have been a better outcome. Or like with Diddy, I believe his insurance company settled this for him. I don't think
They had to. It's too much of an investment that they get to lose. And then that's when they came back to him and said, you got to step down as chairman,
right.
or we pull our insurance out of it. But you got to look at the money that they get off of insuring a Diddy. They're making millions on top of millions. So it was mutually beneficial for them to settle for him. It was mutually, and I want to remind people, just because you settle don't mean you're guilty.
Right.
When Mr. Cosby explained it best to me when he settled with Andrea Constant, the reason why he settled is because 5 years or 6 years prior, his son had been murdered. And then right after his son had been murdered, a woman that he had an open affair with, Sean Jackson, her daughter tried to extort Mr. Cosby out of $40 million, saying that he was her father. And he went and took a blood test. His blood work is still in Delaware County, where she never went and took the blood test to prove that he was a father. And he even reached out to Sean Jackson and asked Sean to tell her daughter to stop this, and she would not stop. So Mr. Cosby attorney at the time, Jack Schmidt, wore a wire for the FBI in a coffee shop, and Sean Jackson was arrested, and she was given jail time because of trying to extort him out of $40 million. So, that's the reason why he
He was
settled.
the only one arrested. There was a Russian.
There was a Russian, right.
Russians involved in it as well.
And think about the reason why Russians involved. Now tie this together. Who killed their son? A guy from the Ukraine.
Right.
So it was obviously a hit. And I know people don't like conspiracy theories, but it was obviously a mafia hit that someone put on Mr. Cosby because he was doing too much. And they didn't realize that this black man had slipped through the cracks to have these type of resources to try to buy an NFL team, the Cleveland Browns, and NBC at the same time. So they saw him, and he was too vocal for black people. It's a difference if you have the money and you're silent like Magic Johnson, and you don't go get caught up in political issues or issues to support black people. Then we'll let you do everything you need to do. Mr. Cosby decided to buck the system, and because of him bucking the system, he became the brutal black buck.
Yeah.
As you know, in the South, that's when they hunt a deer, they hunt a buck, and that's why they hunted slaves. They call them go get the buck. So he bucked the system, and they said, well, okay, you're gonna buck the system, we're gonna hunt the buck.
Yeah, this is a man. Judge Joe Brown has spoken very positively of Dr. Cosby. A lot of people don't know this, and we talk about this also in our book. But Mr. Cosby was the one who was responsible. Let me correct that. Both Dr. Cosby and Mrs. Cosby were responsible for Melvin Von Peebles doing Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, because Melvin Van Peebles, the late Melvin Van Peebles, could not find, the studios wouldn't give him money to make the film. And he had to come up with money to make the project. And Dr. Cosby gave him a $50,000 loan with permission from Camille. And that was how the movie was made. And on top of that, that in and of itself saved Hollywood, because at that time, the Hollywood industry, the studios, were being bought out corporations like Gulf and Western owned Paramount. People were not going to the movies, but when the black exploitation, or what they call black exploitation, started, that helped save Hollywood. And then you saw Shaft come out, and we just lost Richard
Right.
Roundtree and
Right.
Truck Turner and Foxy Brown. So he played I guess you could say an indirect role or direct role in saving Hollywood at that point. And uh, if I
Well,
could,
look at Clarence Avon. He in 1970 he gave Clarence Avon over $270,000 to save his radio station. You
and
know,
that's not
Clarence Avon.
a documentary.
Right, and you know, and Avon, you know, is called himself the Black Godfather. You know, look, when you have that type of wealth, but you're salvaging our history and our Black people, you become dangerous to society in that part of white society um, mindset. You're dangerous. You're dangerous to what we're trying to destroy, and that's our history. That's our Black history, and you know that's why I say no matter what how you feel about Jamie Foxx or Diddy, they're trying to destroy the history that these guys have created. These guys are multi-talented guys. These guys are brilliant guys who, you know, really got out here from nothing, very minimum means, and they turned themselves into Hollywood icons who were able to create massive empires of wealth, not just for themselves, but their families. But they're not going to allow Black men today to have generational wealth. That's the whole premise that we have to focus on: generational wealth. If 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 they could strip Bill Cosby of everything now, well, his grandchildren would have nothing.
Right.
If they could strip Diddy, which Cosby became, as I will always keep saying, the litmus test. Now I could strip Diddy, I could strip Jamie Foxx, because I don't want to see Black generational wealth. Because imagine if that Black generational wealth in the entertainment industry would come together and pool their monies together and their resources together, they will take over. They will own so many entities. That's what they're trying to prevent from happening. And
Yeah.
we have to read between the lines.
I gotta ask you this. This is a question for me, Andrew, because you mentioned about Ennis and his death. Uh, you mentioned the Russian guys. I'm curious, and does Dr. and Camille Cosby even believe that was a professional hit?
I think part of it they believe it because Mrs. Cosby wrote an article in USA Today when that happened, and she said, uh, "America killed my son, not this guy." Because in Ukraine, they were not showing no Black shows for this guy to call Ennis a nigger before he killed him. They wasn't doing any of that stuff. America created that hatred. And Dick Gregory, I represented him for so many years, and Dick Gregory always told me that it was a hit put out on Mr. Cosby, and they were very close. And the Jews, various people in the Jewish community, not the Jews, I don't want to put everybody in the same box, but various people in that community came to Mr. Cosby and told him that he needed to tone it down, and he refused. And so what do? They take your only namesake, the
Right.
person, your generation, your legacy kid who would carry that name forward. They take that away from you. And my whole objective, and I tell everybody, you know, every day, people, you know, look, I lost a lot of clients representing Mr. Cosby. You lose a lot along the way, but it was bigger than that for me. It was not about me. It was not about Bill Cosby. It was about my grandsons. It was about every Black boy and Black girl in America, because I wanted to fight, and I'm still fighting for I don't not civil rights, because everybody our civil rights might not be their civil rights. Their civil rights for us might be to kill us. I like fighting for equal rights, because when you look at, I'm saying we're your equal. You know, we're not beneath y'all. it's equal rights, and we have to be careful about what we fight for. When you look at the LGBTQ community, they don't fight for civil rights; they fight for equal rights. They want to say that they're our equal. Well, we have to change it up too, and you lose a lot in these situations. Look, I didn't get honored with no NAACP Image Award, and I didn't get any award. I didn't get any of those things, and I wasn't doing it for the award. Even with my book, and we just finished up the treatment for my book, it wasn't about the award. It was about the people, and it was about us. It was about not me two, but us two, and it was about standing in the gap for Black America. We're the only race that says that we have to have a leader. We're the only race that says that when we become successful, we automatically have to come back and give money away. We're the only race that requires that, and I wanted to show people what loyalty really looked like, how to be the only person visiting this guy in prison, not only visiting him in prison, but making sure when his skin broke open and he had lotion to lotion up with, uh visiting him and looking at his eyes and seeing that they were bloodshot red, and going to the prison authorities and calling Mrs. Cosby up and said something's not right, and found out that his carotid arteries had blockage, 90% blockage on the left and right side, and they got him to Einstein Hospital and did emergency surgery. Saved his life. My visiting Mr. Cosby in prison and being his only visitor was no different than those who visited MLK in prison, Nelson Mandela in prison, a lot of our political prisoners. Those are the people that I was channeling, when I went on those visits. I did the time with him. I invested the time with them because it wasn't about the celebrity Bill and Camille Cosby. It was about the human being, and I looked at them as my parents, and I will always do that. I will always be that way towards them and anybody I represent. I don't do it because I gotta believe in you. I gotta believe in it. And Mr. Cosby and I, we're part of a fraternity, Omega Psi Phi, and our motto is called "Friendship is essential to the soul." And I believe in it. Before you can marry somebody, before you could call somebody your brother or your sister, you got to be a friend first. And that's what's important, friendship.
No, most definitely. Someone had asked a question. So you got a book coming out, and you have a title for it, or?
We're working title, my writers and everything. Mr. Cosby was pushing me to do this, and and he was on the phone with my writers every day and got some renowned writers, renowned editors. He put them together for me, so he helped put them together. And he was just like, Andrew, it's your turn. I've had my turn. Everybody needs to hear your story, and this book needs to be on every HBCU campus. It needs to be, this, you got to do it. And I did not want to do it because I didn't get into it for that. I got into it to salvage us. And it's about us. It's about our people. The same way I love the way, the Jewish community comes together, the Italian community comes together to protect, and the Asian community comes together to protect their own. I want to show America how Black people, we can come together. It's not that far away. We used to be that way. And we got away from it because we got caught up into that materialistic world, opposed to getting caught up into saying, you know what? We got the best hamburger. We got the best restaurants. We got the best clothing stores. Why do we need to give ours up just to go to their stores and shop? That's the purpose of this book.
Yeah. Someone wanted to know if you planned on doing a documentary on Dr. Cosby's story after his passing. I hate to think of it like that.
We have, look, I was given the opportunity, and I signed a contract with Lionsgate and Stars on the Cosby's behalf. So I'll be in New York later in a week or so, meeting with the documentarians to talk about that position. Right now, Mr. Cosby and Mrs. Cosby have moved away from that. So, but since I signed the agreement, I'm obligated to it. We're going to try to figure out other angles how to do it to to make sure, I always like to hold my end of the bargain when I give my commitment to something in writing, whether it's verbal, but if I'm on contract with it, I try to see it through. And so I'm going to meet with these documentarians, and we're going to try to come up with another angle to tell the story, because it's not Bill Cosby's story; it's America's story.
Yeah, this I say the same to anybody, and that was the main talking point of my book, was that when you have something done to somebody who was America's dad, and he didn't call himself America's dad, we called him that. Or
Right.
NBC called him that because he was the person that saved NBC from financial
Bankruptcy.
disaster. Yeah, Magnum
Bankruptcy
PI,
7 times. Yeah.
Magnum PI and Dallas. Those were the shows back in the '80s that ruled and were kicking NBC's behind. I mean, NBC's only hit show was Different Strokes and Facts of Life at the time. And maybe you could throw in the 18, but it wasn't a true family sitcom like they had been in the 1950s, and since probably the 1950s and 60s, when they had shows like I Love Lucy and Father Knows Best. And I believe he tied All in the Family's record for 5 years, being a #1 show.
He
And
did. He did. They put him. He helped save Family Ties. Because without
Cheers as
him,
well. Yeah.
yeah. Cheers, Family Ties. He saved all those shows, and
I
and
agree.
and that's why I say it's America. My goal is to tell America's story, and America's story is our story. We built this country. Black people built this country, and yet we don't get the credit for it. And I want people to see how and know how to salvage our reputations. I was doing this radio show maybe about 4 years ago, and this lady, she said, "Well, you had Olivia Pope, but you're Oliver Pope." And I was like, "Yeah, that might be true, because it's a formula to doing this." When working in the news business for 12 years, you learn the system and you learn how to play that game. And I just took that information and turned it into my public relations crisis management firm that I started in '07. But Gavin, people like you, when you file that legal document on Mr. Cosby's behalf in Montgomery County, it gave a lot of life. Your book has given a lot of life. You've spoken to Mr. Cosby, and your mom and dad spoken to him by phone, and people like you, it's your show, that we need to keep going. We got enough intelligent people to tell our stories and to give us a platform. So we don't have to rely on the networks to always come to our aid and tell our stories. We got a Gavin Richard, we got a Tariq Nasheed. We have shows like that. We got Vicky Dillard. We have so many great shows out here that can tell our story and put our information out here, that we don't have to always try to get on NBC, ABC, CBS, or Fox. They're not going to tell our story fully. They're going to edit our story. They're going to water it down. But when you want the real facts and real information on what's happening with sexual assault, is the new thing now. It is the new thing. When you want to take somebody down now, because the rules of dating have changed now. The
Yeah.
rules are not the same no more. And that's the conversation that we have to have. I remember saying, and I took a lot of flack from it, when I said there needs to be something like when an allegations first happened against Mr. Cosby, like a sexual assault tour. And what I meant is that this tour needs to be housed, and we need to have women and boys at this tour, men at this tour, girls at this tour, and talk about the do's and don'ts and what to do if you're in this situation as a woman or a girl. Who to call. Don't be afraid. Even for boys, if you're in this situation, someone has abused or assaulted you, who to call and what to do. We need that type of tour to happen, because we need to educate people.
Yeah, we need that. And I want to say too, I'm just curious as to, because you've been on Tariq Nasheed's program, and I've heard Tariq talk about this. Has there been any development in the documentary that he hasn't said anything, but he was planning to do, I believe, on Dr. Cosby and talked about it. So you're not.
No development with it. Tariq, I think Tariq is so busy doing. We supported. I supported Tariq. Hidden Figures Museum with the Cosbys. I wrote a check to him last year while I was living in LA for Cosby civil trial. Wrote a check to a lot of people to support their shows. I think I supported your show and some other shows.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I do. In my world, in my space, you know, I come in and I say, well, hey, the grassroots media is where it's at. And Tariq, I think, looked at those things, and now he's doing this hip hop documentary. So maybe, he's talked to Mr. Cosby several times on the phone, and maybe something like that will happen. But right now, nothing like that is in the works.
Yeah. Tramel Reed asks, hello, Andrew, will you or Dr. Cosby allow for his supporters or fans to have an opportunity to have a meet and greet with him?
I don't know. I think Mr. Cosby now is Mrs. Cosby is very protective of him,
Sure.
and extremely protective, and she's keeping him out the public space. One thing that he said to me maybe about early in the year, when we talked about last year doing a tour, and then as soon as we mentioned a tour, these civil suits was filed under these look back windows about coming out, and he said, Andrew, right now the time is not. I can't come out because somebody will want to become a martyr and murder me and assassinate me. And Mrs. Jackson, who I talk to often, we're very close. Reverend Jackson's wife, Jacqueline Jackson, she begged me. She said, "Please tell my friends to stay silent and still, because we live in dangerous times now." And somebody right now in America would applaud them for trying to assassinate Mr. Cosby in any way. So I think right now is to stay still, and there's nothing wrong with staying still and be still and focus on these civil suits. That's where he's at, and focus on how to um, retain some of your assets, because these things are expensive. Mr. Cosby has not worked since 2015. So those are the things that they have to focus on, and they have to plan. I'm pretty sure Mrs. Cosby's. I don't get involved in that aspect of it. I think that's she knows what she's doing. She's controlling everything.
Yeah, most definitely. Has the Nation of Islam, Minister Farrakhan, or anybody reached out?
Yeah, Minister Farrakhan requested that I come visit him in 2018, and I went. Shaquille O'Neal agent put it together. Mark Stevens, we're all fraternity brothers, including Farrakhan. And Mr. Cosby, he said to me, I recorded the entire meeting with Farrakhan. He sat me to his right hand side at the great Elijah Muhammad home in Chicago, in Hyde Park, well, in the back of Obama's house. And Minister Farrakhan was just amazing, and been on the phone with him a number of times since then. Mr. Cosby has talked to him for his 80th birthday. They were on the phone together. But yeah, Mr. Farrakhan and I got pictures with him, and a beautiful book on my coffee table that he signed when he played the violin on it. He performed with Common and so many others. And it was on Malcolm Shabazz's birthday that Minister Farrakhan told me. He said, "Look, Brother Bill would be okay in prison." He said, because what he did for us and rented the buses for the Million Man March, we would never forget. And Minister Farrakhan is not only a friend, he's a fraternity brother, and the nation has been very supportive and stood behind Mr. Cosby in every way. So I love Minister Farrakhan, and I want to also offer my condolences to him, because he just recently lost his son, and his son, who always is with him, Mustafa, is an amazing guy. But Minister Farrakhan is an amazing man, and he's been great for my life. So many world leaders like Reverend Jackson, Minister Farrakhan, have encouraged me along the way and sent messages to me. Minister Farrakhan, I never forget, he said it was the most amazing. He said, "I've never seen a man like you in this day and era. I don't ever think I'll see it again." So I will always love him and respect him for those words.
Most definitely. Let's see if anybody. Cece did want to just make a statement. She said when you mentioned about not being on the Michael Jackson estate, she said, "Oh, you would have been awesome." Just FYI, Cece.
Yeah, well, I
She's a
appreciate
big,
that,
I
CC.
got a lot of
Well,
big Michael Jackson fans here, and she's one of them.
yeah, well, look, maybe that can, Tom Mesereau was just, I was honored that he recommended me for that. I was so honored, and look, I've had people like Peter Nygaard, the fashionaire billionaire, fashion designer billionaire, who called me from Winnipeg prison, wanted me to represent him. That he thought he was going to get extradited to New York. R. Kelly, who I got him his attorney. Uh, I get calls from so many people, man, and R. Kelly, who I talked to, who was calling me from prison almost once a week. Robert was, and I was giving him advice and telling him, "Look, man, if I could do anything for you, the best advice I could tell you is never stop making music. That's gonna keep your intelligence where it needs to be. They might have taken your freedom away, but it can never take your intelligence away. So keep writing." So yeah, maybe the opportunity to present itself again and with different circumstances, you never know. But having two 3-year-old grandson and a 6-month-old grandson and a daughter, hey, my mom and stuff. So I still want to be close to them. And LA is far away. I like spending my time on the East Coast because that's where my business is located, to do business at. So it'll work itself out, and that's why I don't. Everybody kept saying, "Well, Diddy needs to call you, Jamie Foxx needs to call you." I don't go out and promote myself like that. I don't chase it. I don't
We
have
had
a
social
website.
media at one point until brother Ron Hurd, shout out to him, convinced you to do one.
Yeah, it was Ron Hurd who convinced me to do it, and then I was in LA last year, Tariq Nasheed, and the only reason why I did it, Gavin, is because media was trying to ignore the civil trial. So
Right.
since I worked in the news business, I wasn't on air, but I was a producer. I sold all the TV shows, worked in production. I started becoming my own reporter, and I started reporting just the facts and the truth. As Sergeant Friday would say, uh, it's just the facts, ma'am, nothing but the facts, and Dragnet. So I started doing that. And then CNN, New York Times, everybody started showing up to the civil trial. And the way that, you know, Eddie Griffin and I was talking backstage at one of his shows, and he said, "Look, man, he said, Dr. Cosby owes you $50 million. You shut down the entire courthouse because what happened, Judge Carlin, Craig Carlin, had already stated before the trial started last year that they had no money for overtime, and the courthouse had to be shut down at 4 o'clock every day. And this Jatavius, who's a deputy sheriff there, and Montoya, who's a deputy sheriff, I had become crazy close friends with them, and they were going through jury deliberation, and Judge Carlin called the jury in, and the foreperson who had to go on a vacation, and she could not serve after that day. It was on a Friday. And he said, "Do you have a verdict?" She said, "No." He said, "Well," he went to Gloria Red and her team. He said, "Well, I think in California law it says that we could get a partial verdict. Well, if they had gotten a partial verdict, Mr. Cosby would have had to pay $50 million out in punitive damages that day." I went to the sheriffs and I said, "This is not right. It's 5 o'clock. Every day we had to leave here because of 4 o'clock, and you guys would shut the doors." And then the brother Jatavius went to Montoya, the Latino. He went to the judge and said, "Hey, judge, we're about to lock everybody in." That gave Mr. Cosby another day that weekend to fight. Then I called Mrs. Cosby up and Mr. Cosby and their attorney. I said, "I got an idea." When the juror said that we have the votes, all of the votes, but we didn't get to the last question for punitive damages, she said it in the presence of the alternates. One of those alternates is going to take her place now. That's a mistrial.
Right.
And everybody said to me, they were like, the attorney called me up on a Saturday. She said, "Mrs. Cosby said, that's brilliant." We get on that Monday. The judge, it was almost like he had a bug in my room. And he said, "Look, okay, we could do a mistrial. I'll tell you what we're going to do. we're going to wait for the jury fourth person to come back from vacation in 3 weeks, and we'll reconvene in 3 weeks. Well, she already had her mind made up that she was going to get punitive damages against Mr. Cosby. So it was these two older women there, a black woman and a white woman. They gave me their cell phone numbers after the trial, and they fought for Mr. Cosby. Well, a verdict only came out of it for $500,000. Now that's being appealed, and the judge didn't like it that Judy Huff only got $500,000, so he added another $500,000, and the Cosby's had to put up $1 million appeal bond. But because of that, that black woman and that white woman said to me, and I put Mr. Cosby on the phone with them. They said we were not going to give her $1 million. And you think about Judy Huff, it was a win for Mr. Cosby because at the end of the day, at the end of the day, it was a win because Gloria Allred, this lady had a $4.3 million bill with Allred firm. So it was a win. And that's the kind of work that I do. I come into areas and cultivate relationships into areas for these trials and with these celebrities because they can't do it. I'm the guy on the ground to cultivate the relationships. And it's all about just relationships. People want to be treated well. And when you do that, you never know where that favor is going to come in from. You never know.
Most definitely. Yeah. And before we leave, I did want to mention you spoke even about R. Kelly. I believe Jennifer Bongine, who represented Dr.
I got her hired for that job. Yeah.
He actually, I saw somewhere where the judge actually okayed in the lawsuit that I think was filed that any type of fines or settlements were cut. He gave the victims his royalties from the songs.
Yeah.
Right. And
well, look. Sometimes, I did that because of respect for Jennifer, and I saw Robert being abused by his former counsel, and one of his former counsel, Raeed Shalaby, would call me at the very beginning of this. He was on the team, and he would tell me things that his primary counsel was doing, his lead counsel was doing to Robert with his royalties. And I would help him behind the scenes, and Robert would call me, and Robert's family would call me. So I stayed behind the scenes. His cousin and his investigator flew to New York to have dinner with me after I got Mr. Cosby out. They flew in 3 days later. Mr. Cosby talked to both of them, and he said, "You better listen to Andrew." Well, they didn't listen. Robert wouldn't listen. So I tried to give them somebody that I thought would be ethical because I knew Jennifer was licensed in Chicago and New York. So that's how I recommended. R. Kelly's cousin Keith was holding a lot of the money. He's not his cousin through blood. A lot of people just call each other cousins and brothers. Yeah. So Keith flew to New York and met with me and asked me to come on board. But at the end of the day, I love doing what I do, but I do have to make a living doing what I do. I can't do it for free. I try to help out when I can. Even, I remember there was a situation where one of the attorneys called me during the Cosby trial, and they said, "Well, we need money," and I helped get the money for them until some assets had come in. So those are the things that I do it because when I represent somebody, I fall in love with the person. I get to know the person. That's how I get to do my job so well. And I always tell everybody, it wasn't Bill and Camille Cosby that did anything for me. It was God that did it for me. Think about a guy from Bessemer, Alabama. Nobody would think about that guy to represent Bill Cosby, especially doing something like this. It was all God-given talent, and I'm just using it for good. And that's what it's all about right now.
Yeah. Well, I'm certainly interested in finding out more what's going to happen with his appeals. I'm talking about R. Kelly, and we also are going to keep following what's going on with Dr. Cosby, as well as Diddy. because Diddy still has 2 other suits that are pending under this that have not been settled. And
Yeah.
I'm just curious, Andrew, you may not comment on it, but has Diddy's people ever reached out to you, or even would you be willing to work with him? Just curious.
Oh yeah, I'll be willing to work with him. Look, I'm all about, like I said, it's bigger than Diddy. Jamie Foxx is bigger than them. My goal and my desire and my life work is to fight these type of look back windows. And you know, I'm all about fighting for victims. Any victim has the right to be heard. Every victim should be heard, but a room for that to happen. There's a courtroom. There's a constitution in place that protects all parties, and that's why we have law enforcement to report a crime. You know, and that's what I'm fighting for. You know, I'm all about, but I think, you know, I'm all about people's due process and their constitutional rights. And right now, what you're doing and what people like Senator Holloman is doing in New York, you're stripping people of their due process.
Right. And I'm gonna say this right now in closing. The music industry, if you look at Rolling Stone, this is the title of one of their articles from actually a couple of days ago, written by Ethan Millman. They said the music industry's Me Too wave is just getting started.
Correct.
This is the same Rolling Stone. Of course, we know that Rolling Stone has a very, let's just say, complicated history when it comes to Black Americans. In particular, their Jen Wagner, who's the co-founder of Rolling Stone, got in trouble for making remarks about doing black people and women in regards to rock and roll, even though we know that it was black people like Chuck Berry, Fats Domino, Little Richard, Muddy Waters, and others who actually laid the groundwork for Big Mama Thornton, laid the groundwork for rock and roll.
Right.
We all essentially have to be careful when it comes to getting caught up in our emotions when it regards these allegations against someone, because we can't have lynch mobs in this country anymore. And that's why we had a movement in this country so that you could have your, what Andrew calls it, we should ask for equal rights, but civil rights movement. We had laws put in place like the 13th, 14th, and 5th Amendment. The 14th Amendment giving you due process through the through the Constitution from the states. And the Fifth Amendment deals with self-incrimination, but also due process on the federal level, because you can be charged criminally in federal court as well as state. So when I look at that and look at the situations with Diddy and others, we have to think about, while we certainly should care for our daughters and also make sure that they are protected, we also have to equally protect our sons, because the men are the ones who are supposed to run the world, and that they protect womanhood, and promote manhood, as what Judge Joe Brown says. A country can't go anywhere without its men. And although we see a point of emasculating men at this point, Black men in particular, we have to stay vigilant. And I stay vigilant, and that's why I fight so hard, especially as an attorney, because due process is not something that can be waived. It is not a due process. Denial of due process, as I always say, is not a technicality. It is a foundation of our Constitution.
Right.
We have statute of limitations in place, especially via the Sixth Amendment, because a defendant is entitled to a fair and speedy trial.
Right.
He's entitled to impartiality, meaning the jury can't be biased, but he's also entitled to a speedy trial. And we have statute of limitations on this for a reason, because eyewitness testimony can change, especially when you get older. Of course, we have an advent with DNA evidence, but in some of these situations, they don't have that. So should I convict the man solely on one person's word, or if there's no other corroborating evidence? And that is very hard to do. But as we say, tie goes to the runner when we talk about beyond reasonable doubt. And with that being said, Brother Andrew, if you want to do a final comment or you have anything to say, I'll let you go ahead.
Well, you know, I appreciate you breaking it down from a legal perspective. And a lot of people, you know, you have armchair lawyers, like you have armchair quarterbacks out here, and they don't understand how the law works and the detriment that these look back windows, bring forth to people like the Diddy, like our black men. And what we have to do, a lot of people always say, well, okay, why did Diddy settle? Well, nobody in this day and time wants to be tied to Bill Cosby. They know how to force the hand because they put Bill Cosby in the mixture with these guys, and they're like, "Oh no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be tied to him." And sometimes that's a reflection, even with reaching out sometimes to me. And some of these people will reach out and say, "Hey, it's not that we don't. We just you might have to leave Bill Cosby type situation." But what I want people to focus on and quit getting caught up in the chatter on social media. Let's get in touch with our legislatures. If you know people in New York, Nevada, LA, New Jersey, all of these places where these look back windows, where they have closed and now they're talking about trying to bring them back to life. Let's put these people out of office. Forget about your party affiliation. Forget about that. Forget about, red and blue. It's not about red and blue with these people, it's about green.
Right.
And until you understand that, it's the same green curtain that you got sitting behind you. Uh, that's what it's all about. And we have to understand that yes, bad things does happen to women, but bad things also happen to men. So let's keep that in play. And I wish you guys a wonderful weekend, a wonderful holiday. And I look forward to talking to you, Gavin, for everything.
Thank you. This was Brother Andrew. And Andrew, why don't you give everybody your Instagram page?
It's Andrew at Andrew V Wyatt, AndrewVWYATT. And hey, I would love to hear from you guys. And I try to I'm still learning Instagram, so bear with me, but I love to hear from you guys and love to get your support and everything. Thank you. Thank you, Gavin.
Most definitely, Andrew. And thank you for coming on and keep us posted. Tell the Cosbys hello for me. Tell them my love.
I definitely will. And tell your mom and dad I say hello. They were so wonderful to hear their voices, man. And what they have done for you and your brother and just the family, man. It's a testament because I think they're in the pharmacy business, or whatever your parents. So it was just good to hear that, man, and see a black family that looks like the Cosby Show family. That's what you want to see. So thank you and give them my regards as well. And thank you, Gavin, for having me on.
No problem, no problem.
Right.
And that's Brother Andrew Wyatt, ladies and gentlemen. Y'all follow him on Instagram at Andrew V. Wyatt, guys. And keep us posted. And by the way, Andrew, I'm interested too. I've neglected actually one thing. The situation with Lily Bernard in New Jersey, is that still going, that case?
Yeah, that's the one in New Jersey. Lily Bernard is a part of the one in New Jersey. She's a part of the Survivors Act in New York, and she has become a part of the Survivors Act in Nevada. She's saying that Mr. Cosby raped her in all those different states.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But there's also a recording I hear that we have in our possession of Lily Bernard talking to Mr. Cosby for 30 minutes, thanking him about helping her get work and helping her pay her bills and how gracious she is for him and how he has respected her. So we have an actual recording that's going to be very beneficial to Mr. Cosby in these civil cases.
Good.
Okay. Great. Thanks a lot, Gavin.
Thank you, Brother Andrew. Tell your family my love as well.
I definitely will.
And we're gonna have you come back on again, ladies and gentlemen. This has been a special edition of Random Topics, and we're grateful to have Andrew Wyatt on. Thank you all for tuning in. Shout out to Jamel Reed, Rosalind, who I haven't seen in a long time. Rosalind,
right.
I think was at the courthouse.
Yeah, Rosalind, she worked for William Morris with Mr. Cosby. They have a thing that they do. They sing Lou Rawls songs together.
Oh, really?
Yeah, her and Mr. Cosby, they always do that together. So Rosalind worked for Mr. Cosby. at William Morris. She was like his executive assistant to his agent. So Rosalind's a dear friend.
That's good to know. And Doc, I neglected to ask one last thing, but I gotta ask this: just financially, are they okay?
Yeah, Mr. and Mrs. Cosby are. I know you've seen reports out here.
Yeah.
They are doing well. It's just that, hey, with anything, you're. I don't care who you are. When you get to that age, everybody's on a fixed income, and you have to move assets around, and that's what they're doing. There's no insurance company who can fight these battles for him anymore, because when AIG settled and he was in prison, Mrs. Cosby had the ability, if she wanted to, fight AIG, because it was millions of dollars they owed to them. But the millions that she would have had to put into fighting them, it would have taken away for her fighting for his prison sentence to be vacated. And that was the role, and that was my role, to get that prison sentence vacated. And we got it done. So yeah, but they're fine. They're fine.
Okay, that's good. All right. So
Okay.
night.
She said, "I'm not that Rosalind." She said, "Okay, okay. Well, sorry, that Rosalind. I'm sorry."
Well, Rosalind was big. I think this what Rosalind I know wasn't for Cosby.
Yeah, she was following you at one time and
Yeah,
coming on. So I know what you're talking about.
Right,
Yeah.
and got in trouble. Clay Stevenson, Kevin Wedderburn, Tyree Dominique says, why not go after Clive? No one went after Clive Davis. I think you're going to answer to that one, though. Allegedly.
Yeah.
But
nobody's gonna go. No, nobody's gonna go after these record labels like that. They name. Look, it's about taking our blackness away. What we've been saying on all show. It's not about these guys. It's about us. And until we open our eyes and see this is about us, look, they didn't go. One of the biggest complaints I had in R. Kelly trial, you never brought any of the record executives in to do discovery with them. Those were the people who were providing the women to R. Kelly. So that's just the name of the game.
yeah.
All right. Talk to you later, Gavin. Thank you for having me on, man. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Wow. We had a great broadcast, ladies and gentlemen. That was shout out to you, Rosalind, again, Emperor Rex LBC. I'll be back Sunday, y'all. We'll be talking more about it, but this was a great live stream. Please make sure y'all hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And also, please make sure you contribute, if you could, to our channel by dropping something in the Cash App, PayPal, or Zelle. If you love me for my time, pay me for my time, ladies and gentlemen. That's how I see it. But anyway, guys, we're wrapping this up. Y'all enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Be one, be safe, be blessed. I'm out. I'll holla. Peace.